So we start off things in this episode with things looking like Sarah Palin's back garden, and we get a declaration of the weather from Al.
Can't even dig up grubs.
Remember the oath. That was no Farthing wood mouse.
Better safe than sorry, Kestrel.
Or alternatively, you could go and hunt on the land outside Farthing Land and eat what you want regardless of moral standings. That's what Farthing Land was established for, right? And even in a guilt perspective, I could see Kestrel tearing up, but Owl? Would she really care? I think if Owl did kill a Farthing mouse on accident, she'd probably just be like, "Oh, I know this mouse." Still less guilt than eating at McDonald's. We then cut to Fox, Vixen and Badger, and we then have more emphasis put on the weather. And quite frankly, so should I. Being set in the dead of winter, there are too many joke opportunities to count with this situation. So, let's just do them all over a good period of time. In fact, let's see what we have on this list. Okay, so I've already done Game of Thrones, so I can cross that off the list. Frozen, obviously, that would make great a joke opportunity. I'm already wearing the shirt for it. Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin, oh, that'll get on people's nerves for sure. Now, let's see. Oh, The Snowman, yes. And Rise of the Guardians, that'd do great. How to Train Your Dragon 2, Her Ghost in the Fog, and Fargo. In fact, let's try that one now.
I'd be very surprised if our suspect was from Brainerd.
Yeah.
Did you hear the one about the guy who couldn't afford personalized plates, so he went and changed his name to J3L2404?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Think I'm gonna barf.
Ooh, I can't wait to count down the rest of the list. So Fox holds on to his faith and then gives us a reading from the Bible of Farthing Wood. Stumpy Badger, chapter 6, verse 22.
At least we've got the oath.
How's that supposed to help? It won't feed us, will it?
No, but it will remind us to look after one another.
Well said, Fox.
Indeed, nothing like a good crisis to help pull people together. At least that's what they say until they start eating each other.
When it comes to survival, it is the fittest who emerge triumphant.
But we must look after the old ones, Owl.
It is the law of nature. We go against nature at our peril.
Hold it there, Bush. You're going against nature, and yet you had to do so in order to get here, and you've been doing so ever since. You really are a pretentious gadfly, aren't you? Okay, I get what she's saying is that it's still each for his own and the hard times for animals, which I can understand, but don't go saying things like against nature in a situation like this. We then get a charming little scene where Toad says goodbye before his hibernation, and that's not just a little moment for cuteness, we will legitimately not be seeing Toad for another few episodes. So for those like myself who love Toad, you'll be pretty disappointed at his lack of appearances in the first half of this series, but don't worry, we'll still get all the things that we love and find kind of irritating about him as soon as he comes back. So along with Ada, on behalf of myself, good night Toad, and sweet dreams. I hope so anyway. If he gets a nightmare, then he'll be having to go through it for another 3 months, and he won't be able to wake up from it at all. That'll be hell to go through. Whew. A nightmare you can't wake up from. It'd be like living in Brighton. Badger then departs, and, well, given that I've seen enough ahead into the series, I know what's going to happen next. And with that, I have come to improve the weasel prevention system, but instead of attacking the source, I improve my own defences. So take it away, you two harpies of auditory masochism.
Oh, you're the funniest weasel I have ever seen, my darling weasel.
Can a toad not get a bit of sleep around here?
I can relate, Toad, because these do not work for shit. Thanks, Matalan. But yeah, listening to those two whilst singing and trying to sleep is like living in a building with a student party going on below you. Some of us have to sleep, you know, alright? However, those of you who were able to pay attention through your bleeding ears may have noticed that Measley and Weasel seem to be an item now. But don't think that that's set in stone. These two flop back and forth more times than Spider-Man and Mary Jane. We then cut back to Whistler and Speedy and, well, looks like Elsa's been in town because the lake's completely frozen over. Nah, there's a better joke in there somewhere. I'll save that one for later. But this scene is important, which is actually a rarity for Whistler and Speedy in this series, as it actually potentially establishes the animal's solution to the food crisis.
Crayfish, how do you like them?
Well, I'll eat them if I'm hungry, and I am.
Follow me.
Well, it would be shellfish, to scoff the lot.
No one would have thought the snow would last so long.
I remember that winter because it brought the heaviest snow that I had ever seen.
Oh, this is no use. Oh, it's you. What do you want?
Thought you might be hungry, girl.
Oh, a grub. Tar ever so. Got any more? How rude. You're useless.
Told ya. Trust me, you'll be able to see more stable relationships in Made in Chelsea. So Whistler and Speedy have managed to catch enough crayfish to feed the entire country of Italy, and Badger seems to have come up with the solution to their problems.
Want some more? Speedy's got a whole heap of them.
You wouldn't have. It's Fox and Vixen, you see. Skin and bone. All the meat eaters.
Say no more. Whistler has not forgotten the oath. Take all you can carry, Badger.
So Badger takes the crayfish to the rest of the omnivores with a somewhat salty reception? Alright, no more puns. Though while the animals do appreciate the food, they still long for their natural diet. I can relate. Switching diets is never easy, no matter what species you are.
What wouldn't I give for one mouse?
I couldn't so much as look at another crayfish. Oh, come on, let's go hunting.
My, what miserable-looking specimens they are.
It's as though they were keeping us prisoner.
Don't want us poaching on their territory.
But they've got most of the park. We'll starve if we keep to Farthing land.
That was the deal. No use fighting about it now.
But look at you.
We'll manage.
How exactly? All the food that you can get for yourself you can't stand, and you've got no actual food for yourself, so you might as well take a chance and risk it. Plus, I'm sure Scarface won't mind. I mean, what could he possibly do to you in the future, eh, Fox? Oh, and then Vixen makes this face. I want that as my background. That is a brilliant image. That is the face of pure contempt right there, my friends. And I should know, because many a woman has made that face to me in the past.
Say, no spunk.
Whoa there, Scarface. This is a kid show, remember? Or are you trying to relate things back to your actual namesake once again?
Hey, fuck you, man!
Oh, and about no spunk? Well, just wait until spring and see how that theory works out for you. So with that, we then get another scene that rivals Fox and Bruno's confrontation from the last series purely on its intensity.
I'm warning you. One more step.
Don't fuck with me!
The stag didn't mean us to be kept prisoner on our own lands.
We can't come on yours, and you can't come on ours.
But if we don't, we'll starve. We can't eat Farthing wood creatures because of the oath. It leaves us very little.
So dress warm.
There's one thing you have to learn, my dear. My mate is the law around here.
I am the law!
I thought the stag would...
The stag may be the king, but Scarface holds the power. No one can better him.
Not even you.
Oh, how dare you!
See, this is where I think some of the love for Lady Blue comes from in the fan community. She is very snidey and cruel, but this might just be from a way in how she's very, very abused by Scarface, both emotionally and physically, who, in terms of who she is, he may just consider her another pawn for his use. So in that regard, it gives us a very interesting Harley Quinn kind of dynamic, and it's actually quite intriguing, especially here when she looks upon Fox and Vixen's genuinely loving relationship with potential envy, which then comes to a quite violent head in the latter part of the series. Now, of course, I don't want to glorify domestic abuse from its use as a story tool, but just as its use as a story tool, I do have to give it merit that it does sometimes lead to some interesting situations and also brings out some emotions in the characters that are not often seen, particularly in a kids show. And to be fair, things don't get too outwardly violent between the two. I mean, it's not like 50 Shades of Farthing Wood here or anything like that. Although I might see the film version of that just to see who'd play Whistler. He seems like the kind of person who'd be into that. Especially considering what he does to Speedy at the penultimate episode. Trust me, we'll get there. Meanwhile, Badger gets himself into one of the most underplayed, and yet still one of the most brutal accidents ever in the series. I don't know why, but it's like the lackluster sound effects and the lack of any music make this seem really dull. But at the same time, that's a hell of a distance to fall for a badger. Not to mention, all of that debris is going to fall on top of him, so that's going to be one hell of a stitch. So naturally, Badger is found by the warden of White Deer Park, and he's taken back to be healed up. I wonder what he thinks about that.
You are not sending me to the cooler.
I'm just getting warmed up here. But of course no one knows that at this point, and Mole gets the wrong idea and tells Fox and Vixen. Not that it really matters right now, he's better off than all of them at the Warden's cottage, which is where he's taken of course. But before we can get to that, Fox arranges a search party, and at first it's basically a repeat of the farmhouse situation with Ada from the last series, but then Fox gently reminds them.
Remember how he led you all, when I was swept away by the river?
Damn right. I mean, yeah, the baby mice died and Toe got lost, but that wasn't his fault, right? No, really, it wasn't. Fox then goes to see the stag, and apparently the watercolorist for the backgrounds went a little bit overboard. I mean, look at that thing. I mean, I know it's supposed to be the sunset, but that looks like one of George Surratt's paintings if he sneezed all over one of his canvases.
What brings you this way, Fox?
I'm looking for Badger. He's disappeared.
So interesting. This concern your band of animals feels for one another. Is Farthing land all you hoped for?
It is, but...
I see you're hungry. A pity you don't eat hay, Fox. The Warden leaves plenty for us.
Some of the smaller creatures, rabbits, field mice, they'd like some hay.
Then they shall have it. I hope you find the badger.
Well?
Nothing.
Oh?
I've looked high and low. It's very peculiar. I mean, he can't just have vanished into thin air.
Why not? You did when you fell onto that log. But of course we know he hasn't vanished or died. We then see him in what is apparently David Bowie's cottage, where he meets the Warden and his Stephen Fry impersonator.
Where am I?
In the Warden's cottage, of course.
Oh no, I'm sorry, I mean his cat. Although his voice is very similar to Reva from Fable 2.
Aren't I nice?
Actually, the cat is one of my favourite characters of the early parts of this series, and he would have made a great reoccurring character in and of himself, since he's very uncompassionate as we see as time goes on, but he's one of those characters that just doesn't give a damn about anything he does, a lot like Ada. But for now, him and Badger mingle, though it does sound a little bit like Army Officer meets Slob in this situation.
I suppose an enemy hurt you.
I haven't got many enemies, just humans and
But my human looked after you. You should be thanking your lucky stars.
Dogs.
Dogs. Now you're talking. Disgusting, fawning creatures.
Now who's fawning? Don't spit at the badger.
I know what I'm doing. I have him eating out of my paw.
He likes my assaulting back massage.
Ah! You call that fun?
Didn't you like it? Please yourself.
So while the cat licks his arsehole, no joke, he actually does that right in front of Badger too. Badger finds that he can't leave until his arm is better, but he's naturally still worried about his friend's concern for him, so he tries to convince the cat to go and tell them where he is.
What dreadful company you keep.
We learned to tolerate one another, even look after one another. We came such a long way together.
This sounds like the start of a good story for a winter afternoon.
Tell me about it then. Wait, you don't know about them? I thought every animal did in this bizarre grapevine system in this weird world. But I guess that's the drawback of being the animal equivalent of an internet troll. But at least Badger and him can bond over that. They're both awkward internet shut-ins. So the train continues looking for Badger whilst he finishes his story to the... Okay, it's getting a little bit silly constantly calling him the cat at this point, which I know is ironic given that most of the characters are named after animals, but we've had more than one cat on this series before, so I'm going to call him Felleray. And speaking of which, what did Badger exactly tell him about his journey? So a bunch of animals I would normally eat agreed to something that I told them, then I nearly died saving the fox and became the leader, then some mice got impaled and our guide, who's a toad, got lost on our way here, then Fox came back with a wife and we met a heron in a quarry and crossed a massive motorway, then had to avoid eating cabbage, then ruined a wedding and then we made it here. Oh, and my friend the weasel got drunk and annoyed a lot of people. Don't give up those pills. So Felleray hears Badger's story and then Badger gives him the proposition.
They won't stop looking for me, even at risk to their own lives.
So?
I can't walk, but you can. You could take a message to them. Tell them I'm all right.
I knew you were after something. Go out in that nasty cold snow? You must be joking.
If you do, they'll always be your friends. The oath will extend to you, and if ever you're in trouble...
I now know what I must do, Father. But I have to lick my balls first. So Felleray sets out and runs into Mole first, and as you can imagine, he has his typical way of reacting about anything involving people that he cares about. But he's happy to know that Badger's okay, and Ray starts to set off again. But unfortunately, as he sets back to get a little bit more information from Mole, Kestrel sees it and gets the wrong idea, and, well, the situation escalates into another gruesome outcome once again.
Oh no! No, Kestrel, no! The cat's a friend!
Oh, not again! Where's the mouse now?
What's going on?
I suppose you're Vixen.
I'm surprised he could get up after that. He's probably got a punctured lung and some massive internal bleeding going on right now. But the episode ends, quite appropriately enough, with Felleray collapsing in the snow.
You and your stupid oath. I can't walk the step.
So what to make of this episode? Well, it's definitely very ambitious in trying to tell multiple stories within one episode, which is good in this one because they all do come together quite nicely. But it's also unfortunate foreshadowing to events within the series' future when they'll have multiple stories going on at once that some of them aren't really that interesting and can sometimes lead to a little bit of a mess. But it does also foreshadow some other storytelling elements which we'll get into later. The characters that really get the spotlight here are Fox, Vixen, Badger and Felleray, who is definitely a good and interesting new character, though mostly down to how smarmy and snidey he is, though he does ultimately help out in the end and gets somewhat of a comeuppance for his nature. Speaking of which, this is sadly where Kestrel's major new step in her character development essentially ends, which is a bit disappointing and rather abrupt, but bear in mind that she's the only supporting character in this whole show to get character development as big as this, in a show where so many characters that don't get any character development at all. So it's good that she got this than rather being shoved aside like some of the other characters. The atmosphere really sets a mood here too, especially since we only saw the animals progress through spring and summer, so to see the animals in such a powdered and somewhat hostile weathered environment is a really good way to shake up things and present a really good pathetic fallacy, in that the weather both symbolises and exacerbates the problem. Plus, it looks beautiful, and we do get some teasers into the feud that will start between the red foxes and the blue foxes, which is the major part of the second half of this series, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Overall, a very enjoyable little episode, which gives us a very effective mood and enlightens us on future events. But wrap up warm next time, because we're in for an icy reception. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself!
And now for something completely different.
And for those of you on the market for headphones, make sure you buy Sennheiser, because even if the headphones fall off, they slot back on again. And that's the first time I've ever done an actual review on headphones, despite the fact that my name is Headphones UK. How ironic is that?